More rewards, more savings. With American Express Business Gold, earn up to $395 back in annual statement credits on eligible purchases at select shipping, food delivery, and retail subscription merchants, including the $155 Walmart Plus monthly membership credit and $240 flexible business credit. Enjoy the benefits of membership with the Amex Business Gold Card. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
It's tourney time, and with FanDuel's Dog of the Day, you can get a daily profit boost during the College Conference Championships to bet on any underdog. So get ready to celebrate some upsets.
No one saw that coming, except for me, baby.
21 plus and present in select states. Opt-in required. Minimum plus 100 odds required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hi, this is Debbie, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow. A real person.
Yep, I am here to help you with everything, from selecting the perfect window treatments
Well, I've got a complicated project.
Oh, not a problem. I can even schedule a professional measure and install. We can also send you samples, fast and free.
I just might have to do more.
Oh, okay.
So the first room we're looking at is for guests.
Shop Blinds.com now and save up to 45% site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome to
4Kids Flashback. Hello, welcome to 4Kids Flashback. My name is Tara Sands, and I'm joined by
Steve Yurko.
If you are tuning in for the first time, this is a show about 4Kids Productions. They were the company that brought you shows in English like Pokémon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And One Piece and Ninja Turtles, the 2003 version, all sorts of stuff. But we go deep. We go maybe too deep into the history of the company. Is that a good explanation?
I'm trying to think of an analogy. Like, yeah, deep, like almost like, in the, in the section that only adults are allowed to swim in.
It's not dirty. That makes it sound like porn.
I was trying my best not to make it sound pornographic. I was like, like a pool, like the side where it, like the deep, the deep end? The deep end of the public pool where you go diving in. Kids aren't allowed in. 4 kids. Yeah.
But which is ironic since it's called 4Kids, but
not a poet here, not a.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know. That was a weird.
Not a porno.
It's
not a porno.
It's a behind the scenes deep dive. We're talking to the people that worked there, not just the actors, but like the writers, directors, producers, blah 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 blah. Oh, Steve, I did it again. I fangirled. It keeps happening.
At LAX.
Oh, did you see my post?
No. I
fangirled it out. Yes, it happened at the airport again. So I'm in LAX, and I wasn't sitting, I was walking, and I pass Fun Maker Mike. Do you know who that is?
The Funko guy?
Yeah, the Funko, the guy who created Funko, and he's very active on social media. You can follow him at Funmaker Mike or Funmaker Inc. So I've known who he is for so long, and I've always wanted to thank him because Funko Pops have been like such an important part of our convention world. Mm-hmm. And I've shot stuff at Funko, and they've been a great company to work with. But I've never gotten to thank him, and I didn't want to bug him at the airport, but I did. And I was like, hi, I'm Tara. This is what I do. So he was so, so nice. He left Funko recently, and he's starting a new company. So you guys should give him a follow at Funmaker Mike. Funmaker Inc., I believe, is the other Instagram. And I can't wait to see what he does next. But yeah, I totally fangirled, and we made a video together, and I'm totally geeky. So that's my story.
I feel like I'm spotting more people coming out of the Atlanta airport than I am LAX, but
really?
At least like people I recognize that no one else would recognize.
Oh, cool. Like, can you spill, or is it secret?
No, like no one will know, but just this past weekend, I spotted 3 different professional wrestlers Well, one of them technically flying out of Denver because that's where my layover was, but just like in that span, and I'm like, must have been something going on. But
yeah, there must have been. That's 3 is a lot. I probably wouldn't know. You know, sometimes you see someone at an airport and you're like, I know that's somebody, but I'm never going to figure out who it is. Like, I feel like if I saw a professional wrestler, I'd be like, that's a person people know, but I'll never figure out exactly who that is.
That person is probably known for something.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Cameras are getting scary. It's going to get to the point where someone's going to hold a phone in front of someone's face and it's going to pull up.
It's going to tell you their Wikipedia.
A recognition, something, AI crap. And oh, yeah, I know you from this.
Yeah. I wanted to make an app that does that with cosplay because I never know when I'm at conventions who people are dressed as. So I've said this for years. I want to be able to hold. So if anyone out there is an app developer, please make this. I want to be able to hold the app over them and know what cosplay they're in. So that's similar to what you're saying.
We can also try name tags, maybe.
Listen, I love name tags. I'm a big fan of a name tag because I forget names quickly. But you're saying like a name tag saying what their cosplay is.
Yeah, even though no one wants to wear that because it clashes with the cosplay.
Well, it ruins the cosplay kind of, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I hope I never offend anyone by asking who they're dressed as.
Nah, I don't think so. I think, if anything, it's a conversation starter, so.
Once in a while, like if they're at my table, it's like, they're like, this is from a show you're in. And I'm like, oh, I knew that. Testing you. Oh, yeah. That's happened.
The bulb on the back wasn't a giveaway.
Oh, stop it. I know Bulbasaur. Or sometimes somebody will be in like a very extensive cosplay and come back out of cosplay the next day and say, don't you remember me? And I'm like, but you were painted purple yesterday. How could I possibly know?
I think in general, it's for you, it's like with how many conventions you go to. That question puts people in very awkward positions. Like, oh, you remember me? Like,
it's not just me. It's anyone in the world. I feel like that's a thing you don't say. Like, yeah. I was getting like my nails done the other day, and a very, very old man came in to get his toenails clipped, and he was like, don't you remember me? And you could see they were all like, no. But he was very offended. And then he was going to pay. This is the best part. So he was offended they didn't remember him. And then he went to pay. And he didn't realize that the person he was paying was the same person that has cut his toenails. And then he blamed it on his cataract surgery. And I was like,
Always an excuse.
Yeah, no, he was a character. He entertained me. This is taking a weird turn. Sorry about that, everybody.
Yeah. Talk about teeth and toenails.
Cosplay. Yeah, cosplay led to this. Funmaker Mike, anime. I mean, gosh, the amount of anime licensing that company has done, Funko, I mean, is just is incredible. Really, really, really cool. So yeah, I got to talk to him about like the convention scene, and it's nice to thank somebody that you've wanted to thank for so long in person. Like that was. I felt like I was not, almost didn't say anything. And I was like, no, I'm saying something kind. I should say this. Like, it's not like I was going to be like, hey, screw you. Although I did yell at him because he's made too many Pez dispenser Funko combos because he was also a Pez collector. And I yelled at him that he made too many and has made my collection very difficult. Anyway, our guest is in our Zoom waiting room. We're going to speak to Jonathan Widrow today. He worked in the on the internet web side of everything.
The internet.
Why are you laughing?
Still around?
The interwebs. But we'll talk to him about that, and we will be right back. Our guest today is Jonathan Widrow at 4Kids. Jonathan was the vice president of internet, which just is such a, like anyone who's the vice president of internet, it doesn't matter what company, that just sounds like a very important job. He was there from 2002 to 2007, and we have so many questions. So thank you for being with us today, Jonathan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
So I want to like kind of paint the scene for maybe our younger listeners. Like, what did companies do in terms of internet in 2002? Like, what was going on? What was the landscape? Because it looks like you had worked as a webmaster before that. So, like, what did you study, and what was kind of the world of companies, websites, and internet at this point?
So this was like kind of the start where internet was making specific websites for children, right? So all the 4Kids stuff was for children 6 to 11. So, for a couple years, maybe starting in 2000, a lot of the big companies, Disney, Cartoon Network, were starting to invest in kind of larger website portals and then driving people from their cartoons to the websites. And so so there was a little bit of that going on in the industry. But when I started at 4Kids in 2002, I was hired strictly to do advertising things for our websites. So whatever, we had recently gotten that Foxbox deal. We were going into network television. Part of it was ad sales. Were carving out some of the advertising to do advertising value for people online. And so when I first started, the websites were pretty much advertisements, whether they were advertisements for products through our licensing division or whether they were products directly sold through advertising. And there wasn't that much in the way of content. And so that ended up being what we really brought to the 4Kids world, is that rather than just supplying our advertising or marketing partners with websites just as part of a deal, we were also creating mountains of content directly made for just children to have fun with. And so whether it was interactive printables, of course, games, game-like interactions with stuff. And so slowly but surely, rather than just having, a picture of the Yu-Gi-Oh cards and, go online and buy these cards, we were having, a dual, game. We were having cards that you could interact with on the website. We were having, when I first started, we had just brought back the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So as part of that launch, we created this really immersive gaming experience where kids could click around the sewers and they would get into an area where there'd be a puzzle game. Then, they'd get in an area where you had to complete the pizza, these kind of things. So it was really, really fun. It was, and it was more blue sky in that, nowadays, there's so much established internet stuff where, you can copy what's already there. But we were doing a lot of trial and error. What would kids like to do online? And so, the big companies had, large staffs doing that. But, for me, when I first started, it was just me. And then for the first year or so, we had a couple of people from in and around the company. We had like a newsletter guy. And so a lot of the times it was, can I grab someone from over here? Or, Norman would give me access to a sound editor for a week and I'd work on them creating a music player on the website where you could play all the songs that were in there. So it was a really interesting experience in that I had to work directly with all of these existing departments, whether it was the sound people or whether it was the graphic people that were doing all the renders for the shows or the marketing teams in the corporate office, brainstorming what kind of things can we make that will keep kids on the site, right? That's what we're always looking for. How can we bring them to the site? And then once they're there, if it's all ads or if it's all just, Pokemon card ads, they look at it and they go. But if they come on there and they play a few games, they're absorbing everything a lot more. They're engaged. They're having fun.
Well, it's so interesting you say ads because we talk so much about standards and practices on the show and how with the TV show, they had to be so careful with ads.
Yes.
Was this just like all at no rules? This was the Wild West, basically.
So no, there's actually like an online ad called COPPA, COPPA, Child's Online Privacy Protection Act. And there's a lot of different rules, mostly involved identity and posting things online. So we had to be very careful that kids didn't post their name online, that they didn't post their address online. So one of the things I was thinking about when I was preparing for this is we had a show, The Winx Club, right? And that was a very popular, European franchise. We brought it over. And what we ended up doing, and that ended up being so, I'm not going to call it revolutionary, but it was very new for the time, is we had a moderated Winx kind of forum area where girls could go online and interact with each other. But because of the COPPA rules, you can't just allow children that are from 6 to 11 to post things on the internet. So we hired this team of moms in Canada, and they went through every single post and read it before they approved it to go online. So everything that the kids posted had to go through a human moderator before it appeared on the website.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
I'm like, my mind is a little bit boggled. So anything like that, I mean, I guess it's also because, I mean, we've talked about this before on the show with Steve, especially, like, there were message boards in other places where people wanted to get their message to 4Kids in any way they could.
Yes.
Were you getting messages on there about completely unrelated things and like, how dare you change this scene?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. So I'm sure you guys are aware, once we took One Piece, right? That was a little later in my career. But the One Piece fans were bombarding us all the times. You know, how could you take our beloved One Piece and, you know, take out this guy who smokes a cigarette? Or how could you, like, you know, there's a lot of like bikini clad ladies like in One Piece in the original version, and we scaled a lot of that back. So we would get, you know, probably a pretty good amount of hate. And what they would do is like, so Winx was the only area at first that we had this moderated area. It wasn't available to every brand, right? Because the marketing team was very interested in engaging the girls online. So, you know, and so there was a cost involved with that moderating. So what we would find is these One Piece people would go through the Winx Club and post like a response to like,
Steve!
Not me.
You did it. Sorry, they would post on the Winx forum.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like it would be a string of like, Flora is so cute in today's episode, you know, and then, oh, didn't the girls look so great when they were fighting this enemy? And then it would be like, we would have to remove a post, you know, it would never go live, but we would have like 3 more posts from One Piece fans that would be like, you have ruined One Piece. And your dub is the worst I've ever heard, you know, stuff like that.
Oh, Steve, you swear you never did that?
I didn't go on no Winx Club forum. Come on.
Well, that's why I asked, because I was like, they probably wanted to make sure it got read, and then you mentioned this forum, and I was like, oh, that's how they knew it got read.
Yes, they got read.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that happened all over the place. So we would have like promotions where you could like submit a short story about, you know, Sonic or something, and then some of the short stories were just how we have ruined Sonic X, and the dub is the worst they've ever seen, you know, and stuff. And so yeah, that stuff was coming at us quite often.
I mean, I know that's not the positive of it, but that's pretty funny.
It is funny. It is
I
funny.
mean, we all found, yeah. So how did you know how to do all this? Again, this is early days. Like, what did you study to prepare? Like, are you a programmer, or how does this work?
So now I am a programmer, but at the time, I graduated college right at the first .com boom. So like, I have an economics degree. I was planning to go into business, but I got into doing websites in my own spare time over my college career. So I made like a website as an example for the hair metal band Poison. And it ended up being...
I saw them in concert.
Yes.
I love them.
So,
okay,
yeah.
sorry.
But like, so everything was unofficial. Poison was a little out of fashion in the 90s, of course. And so what ended up happening is Ricky Rocket, who's the drummer of Poison, reached out to me. And he would feed me content, photos, sounds. We even had MP3s on my website in 1998 or something, live versions of stuff. So it ended up being like programming at the time was very compile based. You had to like build something and compile it. It was like, you know, heavy, but the web stuff was so accessible. So I was just making Poison stuff, sending it up, and I just got bit by the bug. You know, I was just some schmuck, and here's Ricky Rocket and me in an AOL chat with Poison Rick, and like it's and for years, and even one summer they let me go to about 10 shows in the Northeast. So I met Bret Michaels, I met Bret Michaels' family, I talked to CeCe DeVille. So that just got me the bug. So I graduate college, you know, and there wasn't this, you know, website resume that a lot of people would have. So you could just show your portfolio. So I had the Poison side. I had worked with a DJ named Eddie Trunk, who's still a classic rock DJ in the scene. And suddenly I had this portfolio, and I got my first job at a startup. It's called Vonage. They do like phone service. They're still around even. And then suddenly my economics degree has turned into a computer career. And now over 20 years, I'm a programmer and a web guy. But a lot of it was figuring it out along the way, telling Norman yes, and then just figuring it out after the fact.
You don't wake up dreaming of McDonald's fries. You wake up dreaming of McDonald's hash browns. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase of 16 weeks, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Your data is like gold to hackers. They're selling your passwords, bank details, and private messages. McAfee helps stop them. Secure VPN keeps your online activity private. AI-powered text scam detector spots phishing attempts instantly. And with award-winning antivirus, you get top-tier hacker protection. Plus, you'll get up to $2 million in identity theft coverage, all for just $39.99 for your first year. Visit McAfee.com. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
Okay, so if you were a one-man team, then who was actually programming the 4Kids website?
I programmed
at that
it.
point.
So what I would do...
So you really did learn it. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
it was my second job, so I had done programming before that. So
okay, so that's where.
Yeah. So what I learned a lot on the job is actually now a technology that's no longer around. All of kids' websites were done in Flash at the time, and Flash was this kind of exciting animation thing, and you could make games in Flash. And so, one of our really huge successes on the Ninja Turtles, we created a game called Mutant Munchies, right? And so basically what it was Pac-Man, but with Michelangelo's head, the ghosts were Mousers, and you could eat pizza, right? And so for me and you, of course, we've seen Pac-Man for decades, but when kids came on, they loved playing Pac-Man with Michelangelo. It ended up being a smash hit. And they even left it on the site for like years and years after I left. It was probably on the site for 10 years.
Wow. So, what happens to this stuff once that site goes away? Is there a way to simulate any of these games you created? Are they just gone? It's such a shame to think of it like that.
So, I was actually just talking. So, I eventually hired someone named Rob Camphausen, and he became kind of we co-ran the department starting in about 2004. And so I was just joking with him a few weeks ago. I actually have all the files from all 5 years. I had them on DVDs, and now they're all in the cloud. But the problem is, I was even thinking, prepping here, but you can't put Flash online really now. It's not supported on the web anymore because it's such a security violation. So I can set it up kind of on my computer. I can view them. But for the most part, I was counting. I think we created almost 50 games over the course of those 5 years. Whether it was Ninja Turtles, whether it was, I was going to say Kirby, but Nintendo didn't let us do anything. Foodons, Ultimate Muscle. I had all these cute games on the website, and there were those fun kind of Flash games. A couple of clicks here and there. Moving back and forth, Pac-Man. That kind of stuff.
That's such a bummer that they're not. That you can't just share them.
I
didn't realize that Flash was that gone.
Oh yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
I remember when I had to get my website revamped because they had to simplify everything. All this stuff that I'd spent all this money making, they were like, no one does that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little sad. I can't show so I have a niece and nephew now, and I told them I designed games for 5 years, and they're like, show us the games, and I'm like, I can't.
So, okay, you said Nintendo didn't really let you. I was going to ask what restrictions you had. I assume the parent company had to, there was probably many steps of approval to get these games done and put on the website. Was there ever a time you made a game and the parent company was like, no? Or
yes.
You said, Nintendo in general. Okay, yeah, so go on.
So Nintendo in particular did not let us touch Pokemon, obviously. And then Kirby, which was another Nintendo property, big show. I couldn't do traditional games for the Nintendo properties. But Sega was a little bit more relaxed on it. So for the Sonic stuff, for the most part, what we would do is we create a Sonic game, and then they would rubber stamp it, for lack of a better term. But one time there was an episode of Sonic X where there was this really cute rendition of Sonic where it was I think Sonic or Tails was imagining them as a cartoon within the cartoon. And so it was like this really cute little tiny Sonic. So I worked with the graphics department and we had them get me frames from the show. And then we carved out Sonic and we had an animated mini Sonic that we used in a very similar to the real Sonic games platform game where you could run around, you could jump and get coins, that kind of thing. And so sometimes I maybe didn't go through the whole process. So we called the game Sonic XS and I put it live and it caused a firestorm. Sega from Japan got in contact with Roz, I think. I think there was this big situation.
Oh, no.
I had to pull the Sonic game offline. But the Sonic community, I don't know if you guys know, is kind of a huge online community, right?
Oh, yeah.
So one of the actual examples of something that you can even still see online, if you search Sonic XS in like fan Sonic wikis, they count it as a non-canon game. And there were even some exploits you could do to get infinite lives or infinite coins, and those still exist. The game is not available to play, but the cheats for this game are still searchable online.
Wow. So do you know what the reason was what was this firestorm about?
I think that they felt like, if you were to make, say, like a really simple click game or, something like that, I don't think they would have had a big problem with it. But the game was so similar to those Genesis games, so similar to the actually core Sonic gameplay that I felt they just thought like I crossed the line. So, but we had spent so much time on it. So I was a little disappointed that, but yeah, we had to pull that one down.
But I love that it's like lore now.
Yeah.
Now it's like a urban legend almost. Like, oh, did you ever get to play it?
Yeah. That's like old school Sonic fans.
That's so Pokemon, like, could you do, you said you could do stuff maybe with the cards, but like you never got to do anything with the
we
characters?
did not have the website. So for Yu-Gi-Oh! We did, but they had severe restrictions on what we could do. For Pokemon, the Pokemon company made the websites for themselves. So we did not, I did not ever do Pokemon stuff, and it wasn't part of that Fox Blocks block. So it was kind of hands off for us.
Do you remember what you did for fighting Foodons? It's okay if you don't. So I'm just curious.
Here's one funny thing, kind of cool thing actually that I remembered about fighting Foodons. And so there was a push, I'm going to say 2004-ish, to see if we could make the episodes of the actual shows that we had more ownership on. So Foodons, WMAC Masters, some of these shows that didn't have those strong licensing divisions.
Oh, okay.
Well, so the video rights came to us. So I got challenged with how can we stream these shows online? So I got the video files from production. I got all of the sound that I needed. And we actually were first to market streaming full episodes of shows. We beat Disney and Cartoon to market by a few months. And so we figured out how to insert ads via Flash on this integrated video player. I think it was Foodons. I think, what's another one? Cramp Twins, like some of the lower ones that didn't have a dedicated licensing division, or like maybe we did have a license, but I don't know how much stuff they ever sold on Foodons. Right. So that was the stuff I could experiment with. And so that was the stuff that I had online. So and then but even for Foodons, there were all these wacky characters in Foodons. So there was this one called Applegator in Foodons. So we had this very popular Applegator because he made this very funny sound. He would go Applegator. And then so we had this. Yeah,
they should have cast.
Yeah. So the Applegator game ended up being big, but like a lot of the popularity of the stuff on the website correlated with how popular the shows were, right? So Ninja Turtles, Sonic Wings, that stuff was doing huge numbers for me. Foodons, not really. We did like to do some stuff for it, but we tried to concentrate on stuff that we know would drive usage.
Right. I mean, and sometimes I guess they thought something was going to be huge and you probably put a lot of effort into it. And then suddenly you're like, oh, that show didn't hit the numbers and no one's playing. I mean, I'm sure that happened. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, there was another show, Funky Cops, where
yes, we love Funky Cops.
People were all excited about Funky Cops. I did all these like Funky Cops content, and like that stuff just died on the vine. I don't know. I think the show didn't do well either. But
we don't know what happened. So there's actually lost episodes of Funky Cops. Like that's what's so funny. It's like certain episodes are completely considered lost media.
Wow.
We managed to dig up a few VHS tapes. John Kalish, the producer, had some, but we're like, we don't know where this stuff is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a mystery. A lot of this, like Ultraman, we dubbed more episodes than aired, and they're just missing now.
Really?
Yeah.
That's such a shame. You think of lost media from like the 50s before they recorded everything, but in modern times, you would think it should be everywhere.
Totally. I mean, listen, it could be at a corporate office somewhere or at a storage facility, and the people that just don't want to tell us that that's where it is. I mean, we're trying to ask the right people, but it's, you know, like, I think someone's got to know. But you're right. Like, you think of that as like pre-store. But again, like some of the stuff, this was VHS tapes we're converting. The quality is terrible. It's a bummer. We did have some questions from listeners. Steve, feel free to jump in if you have anything.
I would like to ask something before we get into those, because you were mentioning how like the forums, it just started with Winx Club. What led to the expansion? Because there was eventually the 4Kids message boards, from what I remember. That was just the whole brand, I should say. Like, yes. Every show. What eventually led to that? Because it seems like the Winx Club version was very easily monitored, and I'm trying to remember what posting on there was like, because I felt like there was a bit of an approval process on there too. But can you go through what led to that expansion?
Yes, honestly, the Winx one just did really well. So, you know, we'd have a meeting in the 59th Street office, you know, every month or so to review what was happening across the whole company. And we would present how much great stuff we had done on Winx, you know. And so when other people saw that success, we started to use the same template that we used to kind of create it for other ones. And then eventually became the 4Kids message board. So that was kind of a trend in general, right? When I first started, every licensing department had their own idea of what to do. But once we had the Foxbox and all the brands were under one roof, it was easier for me to take a product that I make, say, for one property and then copy it over to the other ones. So that's how that worked out, is the Winx Club stuff just did so well. We were having so many kids on there posting stuff. The other brands were like, you know, we want to have that too. How can we set that up? We had this guy, Chris Mullen in Canada, that helped us both with development and the Winx Club stuff. And then he actually used that Moms Network, and we used that same network of moderators. We just expanded it to do the same thing on 4Kids, where every brand had their own message board on the site at the end.
I'm trying to unlock my memories from that. So like you would like, so like until hopefully it was a kid most of the time, but a member would post, and like, what, wouldn't it take like a few minutes, like, or something before it would show up? I'm diving back into things I haven't thought about in a long time.
So you would post it, you would get a message, something like, your message is being reviewed. It would go to my moderation team in Canada. They would we paid them by the post, so they would just go through. And so, you know, and I'm sure you can understand, almost all the traffic to these websites was Saturday and Sunday. You know, on Monday, I was getting very few posts, but Saturday, you know, especially during the morning, I'm going to say 8 to 12, both Eastern and Western, we would have, you know, a dozen people on there checking every post as they came in. And so, yeah, even the ones that weren't Winx, every post, everything on our website had to be COPPA compliant. So 6 to 11-year-old children, no matter which of the brands it was, had to be safe on our site. So yeah, the same moderation queue ended up being expanded for all the brands.
Wow. Is that something that's done today? I mean, I can't even imagine that could be done now with the amount of...
Yeah, I do not think there is a comparable thing online to that, where kids can just post. Even forums in general are kind of on the way out, right? Like, even for adults, we don't use forums as much as we used to, I think. But yeah, I'm not up to speed on what's happening in the landscape now, but my understanding it's much more app-based now, where you get an app, you play games on the app. And then, so for instance, Roblox is just a huge thing for kids 6 to 11 now. And they don't even allow you to type the messages, really. Basically, they have pre-rendered messages where you can send stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, I would assume everything is a lot safer and modern and more controlled now, which is good.
Yes.
Probably. No one's yelling about One Piece in the Roblox forum.
I don't think so.
Maybe Steve, I don't know.
They got to piece some phrases together. It's code.
Some of the listener questions we've answered, but I'll just go back in case we missed anything. within these questions. They wanted to know what the general advertising pipeline was like. Steps to submit approval. Because these mostly commercials taken straight off of like what they were showing on TV, or were there new commercials? Like, what was this whole advertising segment like?
There's two answers, right? So one of the answers was the sales team would be selling in ads for the Fox box, and then as part of that, they would give value on screen and they would give value on the web. So we weren't very often playing full video commercials, but we would very often create, say, a page that highlights, the new action figures that have come out, or the new Ninja Turtles lunchbox, or whatever property and product it was. And we would create web content that would match the online deal. So one deal that I remember very vividly is on TV, they had a promotion called the M&M's Color Drain, where the M&Ms were dealing with a situation where some evil guy had sucked all the color out of the M&M's world.
Oh, yeah.
And so as part of that, we didn't actually play the M&M's commercial online. What we did is we took some M&M's key artwork, removed all the color, and in Flash would allow the kids to go in and click and recolor the M&Ms. So it ended up being, advertorial content where it was game-like, but it was actually paid for by M&Ms. And then what we always tried to do is, since that now had been built, this black and white color-it-in thing, we repurposed M&M Color Drain to something on the website called the Color Blast, where I took Foodon's art, even Kirby art, Sonic art, and we would allow them to do that coloring in thing just as content, not as advertising.
Okay, so even though you weren't allowed to make a game for Kirby, you were allowed to include it on the website.
Yes.
If it was something rudimentary like that.
Yes. And that still had to go through the whole process. So it's not only just the license holder, right? It was also everyone in production and everyone in the office uptown. They had to actually approve it too. So to get any one of these things online, I usually had 3 or 4 different stakeholders. Sometimes Fox themselves. So we would do these, like the Mega Millions, we would do once in a while. We would give $5,000 away to kids.
That's crazy. Cash?
Yes.
I get like a bike, but cash? Okay.
So Fox Legal would be involved. So very often I would be working late Friday night with Fox Legal, making text changes, making legal changes on the website so it could get approved for 8 a.m. Saturday. So whether it was ad standards, whether it was children's standards, whether it was network standards, whether it was license standards, there were always people that were chiming in for changes. And before we could put anything live, we had to get a litany of sign-offs.
That's crazy. I can't believe this was happening the night before it aired.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys did a lot of contests. How were a lot of them? Did they have an internet component? I know some were just like mail in a thing, but was it like overlap, or were some just internet, or what do you remember about the contest? Because there were some really funny contests going on there. So
we a lot of them were just internet contests, complete the color drain and you were now entered into the sweepstakes, On the Mega Millions, we always, not Mega Millions, what was Mega Money, or I forget what it was called. But anyway, whatever it was, you had to usually do something to do it, match 3, so like that's like the Bejeweled Candy Crush style game. So we'd make a little thing like that. And then there were other times where kids would have to do something and mail it in. And so we were just the web people, but someone else would be going through those, and then we would announce the winners on the website.
Steve, did you enter any of those internet contests when you were a kid? Do you remember, or were you mostly doing drawing?
It was the Shaman King art contests where those were posted on the website, but since it's Flash, because Tara's was begging me to look it up, and I go in the Wayback Machine. It's no, the website's in Flash. You can't, you can't
sad.
do it. But
yeah, I remember that one because we got so much great artwork for the kids, and so that was an example where if it was just ad sales doing it, they would not have posted it. But we felt like the kids would like to see the artwork from other kids, right? So creating artwork that kids could see that were on the website ended up being popular. Other kids' stuff, like user-generated kid content that other kids could view, that ended up being popular.
Steve was a finalist. So
that's awesome.
Just bragging.
Not a grand finalist, but
oh, not a grand final, just a finalist. Oh, now I'm not so impressed. Yeah. I didn't realize that. Another question we got, and I think we pretty much covered this, was the process of making Flash games, how much the licensor was involved. But I think we kind of went into all that, unless there's anything else you want to add. Viewer feedback, how much did that get taken into consideration as far as licensing and production were concerned? And actually, I want to add to that, like, how much did because this at the end of the day really was a licensing company.
Yeah.
How much of like the 4Kids product was on this site? Like, was it like, oh, and buy the Yu-Gi-Oh lunchbox that 4Kids also happens to have a monetary incentive to push?
Yes. So we did have quite a bit of that on the websites, but it had to be a little bit more buried. So I'm like, this is a little bit of an aside, but an interesting thing happened while I was at 4Kids is that there ended up being an FTC lawsuit against children's companies for advertising websites during programming that had advertising on the first page, because like there was that distinction between ad time and promo time. Right. So there was a very thin line. So they actually flew me as the representative of Fox with Kristen Gray. And we spent a week in Washington, D.C. forming this new type of regulation where if you were to promote a website during promotional time, the first 2 clicks of the website could not have any products or advertising on them.
Wow.
So
that's a big deal.
Yes.
That's a really big deal.
So there ended up being this whole new kind of rule set where, and that's why some of those Fox approvals sometimes took so long, is because they had to conform to this kind of new standard that had just been voluntarily volunteered by the kids industry, rather than having the government dictate what the rules had to be. So once everyone opted in, that changed a little bit of the calculus. So 2 things happened. First, the actual website would no longer be filled with advertising on the homepage, but then they would have different promo time or different URLs during things that would kind of get around it. So we would it was always a balance between the licensing department, which wanted to have the entire website just filled with products, and then our Fox partners, and then our actual kids that wanted stuff on the site. So that was a lot of our job in the web department, is still making it fun and engaging for kids, and still making it legally compliant through Fox and COPA and all these rules, but then also keeping our licensors happy.
Pro Savings Days are back at Lowe's with limited time savings on the supplies pros need. Get up to 40% off select major appliances. Plus, save an additional $100 on every $1,000 you spend on select major appliances. And don't miss your chance to activate and earn 3 times the points on select DeWalt and Klein tools. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 3/28. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Associate or Lowe's.com for more details on qualifying items.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
This is a question that asks, what would you say the differences in strategy are between a company like 4Kids on the internet of like 2002 to 2007 versus today, which I know you're not working in that, but even just things like the way technology has changed so much. And you must have seen, even from 2002 to 2007, technology changed completely.
Huge increase. Yeah. So
were you faxing things at this point?
We were not faxing things, but we did have to, on all the contests, they were online entry, but we also did have to allow a mail-in entry. And so there was a time where we had to allow for mail-in entries to come. And then
and like today you don't have to do that because you can the internet is more accessible to everybody. Was that really just
that's my guess, is that some non-trivial percentage of kids in 2003 would not have been able to go online, where I'm guessing in 2024 almost all kids have some sort of tablet or access to the internet.
Well, it could be free at the library or things like that. Like they don't want to put like okay.
But it's possible that in the legal, they still do force it. I don't know how the Disney or Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon websites work today, but that was a big component of it at the time. But, the entire, one thing that's there is the entire technology is different, right? So everything is built on web compliance stuff now, if they're websites, or then you can actually build app specific games, right? So a lot of these, like if you go on, the Cartoon Network app, they still have tons of real simple games starring their characters now, Nickelodeon, all that stuff. So in the very end of the day, driving kids to the site and keeping them on the site for multiple minutes playing games is still probably the number one thing that kids' websites do today. But it's so much more distributed, right? There are these large platforms like Roblox and everything. There's specific free gaming apps all over the place. So it's really using their characters to keep kids on the site in fun gaming ways.
It's all about retention.
Yes. Those are the stats, like time on site. Can I get the kids from 3 minutes to 7 minutes, as on average, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
It's a little dystopian.
It is. It really is. I know. I needed a minute with that. We have another question. If you had anything to do with shows that didn't entirely air on TV, but did appear on the website, like Kamen Rider, Dragon Knight. Like there were some shows, I guess, that weren't necessarily for kids shows, but that did air during those blocks.
I don't recall that
another
show.
example. That show, okay. Steve, do you remember what other shows were examples of that? Like I think Bratz, maybe.
That I remember. Okay, yeah, I remember. Like Crash Dummies was an internet thing at first.
Oh,
that wasn't even a full show. They made those.
It was shorts,
right? Yeah. So we did a big website thing for Crash Dummies because that's a fun thing to do games. So we had a couple of really fun Crash Dummies games. We did have here's a funny story. Crash Dummies was actually made in Flash. And so that's why that's why it was so easy for us to put that stuff online, because I had to do no conversion. I basically took the raw files that they made that aired on the air. I was able to actually export them and make them usable on the web. So we had a full Crash Dummies site. We had Crash Dummies games. That was a good property for us in terms of flexibility, because we might have even owned that one. Like there were a lot less hurdles for me to go through to get Crash Dummies content online.
Oh, yeah, those must have been fun games. I'd kind of like to play those.
Yeah.
Another question. It's a long one. It says, Steve has brought this up before, but do you remember when there was an online poll where viewers could vote for which fall 2004 show to premiere early? Apparently, Mew Mew Power. Steve remembers Mew Mew Power being in the lead.
Well, the first question is, do you remember this at all before we even get into this? Okay.
I do.
And do you remember if they switched the results of the poll?
They did. The poll.
Oh my
I think
God.
this is the first time we're getting confirmation about it.
The poll was not on the up and up.
Because I remember checking it, and I recall Mew Mew Power like absolutely dominating it. And I think One Piece was second, F-Zero was dead last, and then on TV they announced, well, F-Zero won the poll, and everyone's like,
Yes. I think they would have gone with the poll if F-Zero won, but F-Zero didn't win, and they were like, thank you for the results, Jonathan, and they did what they wanted.
I feel like that is something you couldn't get away with today.
I don't know, maybe.
Well, not if you're showing the results as they come in.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like if it had been a blind poll, nobody would have known. But the fact that you guys were showing the results as they came in.
I actually remember what this happened. because it wasn't as easy to limit it to one vote back then, right? You couldn't have registration for children, right?
Right.
So there was a notion at one point that people through other means had stacked this poll. Right. I think Mew Mew Power was a Japanese property, right? So they had some sort of fan base. And so I think that the idea was, we think this poll has been subverted in some way. So we're just going to go with what we want.
I
love this controversy.
I'm sure, yeah, because Mew Mew Power was, Tokyo Mew Mew anime had like a, I guess like a cult kind of following online. So probably, the fans showed up in droves. Yeah. But like F-Zero was dead last, which was funny that it wound up winning. And I can only assume was probably 4Kids saw it as a Nintendo property and probably the most marketable.
Yes, and I'm sure there was also an idea of, we want to keep Nintendo happy, so Pokemon is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
and
that's so interesting.
And the show eventually got canceled.
Did you have games for that show, for F-Zero?
No, they didn't let us do. They didn't let us do racing games or anything. Nintendo has very tight controls over.
Oh, Nintendo, of course.
Yeah.
Right. Thoughts about implementing the 4Kids TV message boards and that more in-the-know fans of the original series? Oh, we covered this. But my question was, like, how did Winx Club become the first to have that? Like, was it something about Winx? Maybe because it was like a push for more female-centric shows, or
and we had really creative licensing team on that one. So Colleen Nusky was the head of the licensing, I think, and so she just was very open-minded on kind of out-of-the-box ideas. So me and Chris Mullen went in there, and mostly him, just pitched a lot of just some of these ideas. We didn't realize how it would go, but we figured we're going to try some fun, interactive stuff that no one else is doing right now. And we launched it kind of small. We didn't expect it to be so big. And then just thousands and thousands of kids, were posting messages within a couple months. So it ended up being a real big success for us. And then, as I mentioned, once the track record was there, the other brands were like, yeah, it would be totally cool with us to expand it out. And that became, one of the big parts of the website.
That's so crazy. Are there any other highlights or stuff from that time you want to talk about? Any memories of? I mean, we even talk about like the office culture and how young everyone there was. I mean, we were working crazy hours, and anything you want to add is fine. I didn't mean to put anything in your brain, but
yeah. And so, at the time there was just no focus on web, right? So the production office had very tight deadlines to scrub these shows visually. There was all the audio teams, recording everything. So what would happen is the last week in December, they would say, oh, I have a graphic designer for you for 1 week. What kind of stuff can you get from them? And then I would just, I'd work with, Jen or Anthony or whoever, and we would have, a full suite of new, wallpapers for the kids to download that week. And so I was picking where I could, people from little departments, right? I'd hear about a certain voice actor coming in that day, and I'd be like, I need a few audio clips from XYZ. I would talk to whoever was managing the audio at that point. I'd be like, if you have a few minutes at the end, can you record this, and this for me? And then I'd get all of a sudden unique sounds just for the website that weren't part of any show, right? Even if it was like, that Applegator was an example, but we did it for Kirby, we did it for Sonic, where we would get just the voice actors to record little clips for us. They might not have even known, I don't know, what they were told, but they were recording a few extra things for us. And then sometimes they would forget. And then a month later, they'd be like, oh yeah, we did record this for you. I said, can you put that on a disc for me? And then, so I would get a CD of 5-second clips, and then I'd have to rip the CD to audio and then include it in the Flash.
Oh my God.
So there was a lot of that. And then, it depended on the property a lot of times too, so for Yu-Gi-Oh, they were always like, put more pictures of the cards online. So we would try to figure out how to do that. But and
you guys were locked into using the card design with the show backing and not the real card backing,
yes.
Right? You know how there's the two?
Yes.
Okay, so you had to use the show card backing.
Yes.
Interesting.
And so even the office culture, I was in a unique position because I did deal with the advertising department and I was dealing with the licensing department. I spent a pretty good amount of time in the corporate office, right? So I was stationed in the production office on 23rd, but I'd say 2 days a week, I'd be up there, talking to the license holder, working through these kind of approval things. There's, as much stuff as we got live, so much stuff didn't go live. And that was always hard for us, because we were creatively working on this information and we only had a small team, even at our peak, where if, you cut down 2 out of the 5 things I want to do, that really impacted my next month of content rollouts. So we were always up there, schmoozing, seeing if I could get the licensed people to get stuff. Sometimes it would be a negotiation. It would be like, we would love to put this on the site, but we really want to have the latest, Winx Club doll here. And I'd be like, all right, we can make that work. And then like something that might have been unapproved a couple of months ago could be reapproved if it had been tweaked and finessed by our marketing people. So there was a lot of that. But yeah, it was like, especially on Thursday and especially Friday night, we had Friday night lates, I'd say multiple times a month, right before the Saturday morning blocks, just getting that stuff approved at the last minute. So in addition to Mega Moolah, which I'm now remembering is the name, we would always have an on-air promotion of the week, and so those approvals had to go through, the advertising people and then whoever the brand holder was, M&M's or whatever. And then it also had to go through Fox Standards Legal and Fox Standards Kid approvals. So I'd sometimes be like working with Kristen at like 9 p.m. on Friday, and she goes, I just heard we have to change 3 words here. And so in Flash, that's not changing 3 words. That's going into the Flash program, re-outputting everything, putting everything back up. And we had at the server farm at the time where we had a very specific way of rolling it out. So I'd be rolling out updates at 11 p.m. to go live at 8 a.m. the next day. And there were even a couple of times they came in at like 7 a.m. Saturday, and I had to get up early and do it before it went on live.
This is insane. Yeah. Did you have access to like the music library there? Or because I know there's different things with like the music and the licensing and the money and the way that's all handled.
Yeah.
Or did you have free reign with the music library?
We did not have free reign, but we would be handed off stuff that was already approved for online usage. So whoever was doing the music, I'd have a meeting with whoever, and they'd say, "Oh, here, this song, and this song is either owned by us or is licensed for online use." A lot of it was not. So we did get some, but not, I wouldn't even say half, but we eventually had this, what we called the 4Kids jukebox. And it was this huge Flash player by show with a lot of different songs in it. And so that ended up being a really popular feature where I think kids would just pull it up, play some songs and, go about their day.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I want that.
Fun.
I see since leaving 4Kids, you've worked within the game industry, within pop culture. Can you just tell us a little bit about what you've done since 2007? You don't have to give us all the details,
okay.
But maybe some highlights.
Sure. So the thing I did right after 4Kids was directly related to what we had been doing at 4Kids. So when we made that Ninja Turtles Pac-Man game, about 2 years later, we had this new property, Viva Pinata. It was this Microsoft property.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I talked about the Pac-Man where Michelangelo was eating the pizzas and fending off Mousers. On the Viva Pinata one, I forget the little kind of rat pinata or something like that. I forget the character name. But we made him eat the whatever the little thing, candy, because that was the big pinata thing. So we launched whatever it was called, Pinata Pac-Man, and it became our second biggest game.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of rang a bell in me and Rob's head of, is it possible to do something? So we developed technology in Flash that would separate out the code of the Flash with the visuals of the Flash. And we actually got $500,000 in investor funding. And we created a platform called Firebug. And essentially what it was is these simple games, like Asteroids or Pac-Man, just the gameplay of it. And then children could upload photos, crop the photos so that they fit properly in the game, and reskin the games for whatever they wanted. So That's what we did from 2007 to 2011. And it was the highs and lows. I always say I can punch down the Firebug 4 years into a couple minutes of talking points. But we ended up having a lot of success white labeling our platform for other big kids companies. So Sports Illustrated for Kids was a very big kids website at the time. We did something through Simon & Schuster for this property called Pendragon. We were on the air with WWE, where our platform was powering the game sections of these giant companies. blacklist. And so what ended up happening in that company is, as I was, really ramping up, Steve Jobs famously declared Flash would never appear on the iPhone. And so overnight, my promising startup where I had 5 or 6 Fortune 500 deals like signed and live, no one would fund a Flash company after that. No one. I could not get funding. So we kept going for another couple of years. But that's like, it's just luck. Sometimes it's just luck. Another thing, that was really sad. So that ended my kind of time in kids and games. And also the first half of my career had been so Flash centric. So now I was suddenly stuck with expert knowledge in a technology that was dead. Like it died fast. So that really sucked. So it was a little bit of a weird time for me, right? It's like my startup had just failed. This huge job that I had 4 kids. I was actually thinking about it today. I was talking about it. And it might be my favorite job ever, just because it was so wide open, right? I had so much control of it. Norman and Al both kind of just let me run with it, and I showed them the metrics. They'd be like, oh, wonderful. And then until it wasn't, at one point we got big enough where everyone was looking at us. So I was a little lost after Firebug. So I started just working on other people's startups as kind of the first guy. So there'd be a founder, there'd be investors. They were on the lookout for a startup programmer that could just build something in the first 0 to 12 months. It's called a 0 to 1 product. And that's what I specialized in a while. So I did one with my friend Shane Fontaine. It was called Help Each Other. And so I'd say it was about 3 years before GoFundMe, and it was a very similar concept. But the online payment aspect wasn't good enough to actually make it seamless to people. And also the idea, right? That crowdfunding, health issues. It was
ahead of its time.
It was a little ahead of its time. It was a little ahead of its time. I did one called the Hot List, where if you remember Foursquare, you could check in on places, right? So we had kind of a dating focused one where we used the Facebook graph to predict 2 weeks ahead of time, who would be at bars in local cities, the hot people. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Who was judging the hot people?
Yes. So,
it was a team of moms in Canada.
Yes,
they were going
exactly.
through I like to think they're in charge of everything now. That team of Canadian women you hired.
They should be.
So after that, the Hot List.
Yeah, I did a really fun startup called Nifty Thrifty in Brooklyn, and the idea is selling thrifted clothing online, and that actually proved to be really hard. Right. So if let's say you loved a dress and it was, your size and it sold out, we were never getting that back in stock. If you got a pants that you really liked, but we had 2 sizes different from you, it's not like we could order that size for you. So everyone would come to the site and be really interested in it. But, at the end of the day, the sales weren't there. And actually, the founder of that has gone on to do something called Good Fair, which has really flipped the vintage thing on its mind, where he basically sells you a blind flannel or a blind t-shirt where their team will pick it for you in your size. And then vintage, vintage is a tough one online.
Yeah, because they're one-offs.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything that's a one-off online like that, that's really tricky. So they made it more like a personal shopper, which is, I guess, the only way to go with it.
Yeah. And so that's really cool. I did a startup. I actually ended up getting into casino gaming a little bit by mistake. Not by mistake. It just, you fall into these things, right?
It happens.
I'm in New York City. I'm networking with people that be like, oh, we have this guy that builds a prototype. And so if you think of a casino now, it's all like slot machines, right? So we ended up having what we called a skill-based game, where we would have a little bit of gaming in the slot machine under casino regulations. So we had this first-person shooter, if you can imagine, like Call of Duty, but it wasn't. We had like a robot shooter, and you could kill anywhere from 0 to 10 robots. And if you kill 10 robots, you get the max payout. If you kill 7, you get no payout or whatever it is, right? So I ended up building both the software and the hardware for casino slot machines for a few years. And then actually that ended up being promising until 2020, because the pandemic just destroyed in-person casino startups. And then, of course, I did a crypto startup when I did LA.
You had to.
I had to do a crypto startup. And I remember about a year and a half into my crypto startup, we had hosted like a night, like a gathering night. And the only people there were other crypto developers. There were no customers. There were no people looking to buy our product. They were just other crypto bros and me talking about how cool our product was that no one was using. So,
oh, oh my God. I mean, but you have to try all these things, I guess, because again, the things that you're working on are trendy things. I mean, it sounds like over the years you're sort of on the cusp of, and maybe too early on certain things, but you have to try those things.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think you're going to bring Flashback. I think that's going to be your thing is they're going to be like, oh yeah, Jonathan Widrow, the guy who brought Flashback.
I'll do it. I have all the FLA files. I have hundreds or thousands of them ready to go.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so interesting. This is a part of the company we have not talked about at all. So I'm really excited for our listeners to hear this. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thinking about all this stuff again has brought back so many fond memories. And I know I talked a little bit about the annoyance of the approvals and stuff, but it was such an exciting time. We were doing so many fun things. And you know, I know lots of kids remember the sites because once in a while I'll search and they'll be like, oh, I remember this random game online, like that Sonic XS thing. And that just makes me so happy.
Do you ever blow someone's mind, like if they're wearing a Pokemon t-shirt or like a Yu-Gi-Oh shirt and you're like, oh, I actually worked on those games? Like, do you ever impress people in your life?
Especially Yu-Gi-Oh, because like, I don't know how much kids today even know about Yu-Gi-Oh. Is it still around? Maybe it is. I don't know. But like
it is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
But like whenever I talk about
people
Yu-Gi-Oh,
tend to like the original, like the older people who watch the original. Those are the harder core.
Oh yeah, I remember we launched some kind of Yu-Gi-Oh GX at one point. We got a lot of negative feedback about that on the website.
Oops.
On the Wings Club forum.
Yes.
It's insane.
But yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh.
So like you tell people.
Yeah.
So you're like, hey, by the way, kid.
Yeah. I made Yu-Gi-Oh.com for years.
That's okay. That you just reminded me. We'll let you go in a minute. But Yu-Gi-Oh.com. So like there was how many branches of 4Kids websites were there? Because there was the 4Kids TV. I want to make sure.
I remember the original Yu-Gi-Oh one back
hub?
in, what was that, 2002 or 3? I remember that.
Yeah.
I think that also hosted the anti-drug PSA, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. We had a bunch of those through the website, but yeah, the Yu-Gi-Oh site had that. It was really old when we took it over, and then we revamped it. We had a lot of like card, like checklist areas, and then we did do content on that one as well. But they would not allow like a flash card game content, if you know what I mean. So we had to kind of work around that a little bit.
So there was the 4Kids like hub, and then like did Winx Club have its own
Winx.tv or Winxclub.tv was the site. Yu-Gi-Oh.com was a site. Sometimes we would have it just redirect to the 4Kids website. So there probably was a Foodons URL, but it would redirect to Foxbox/Foodons and then later 4Kids.tv.
Got it.
Yeah, I think so. Yu-Gi-Oh, Winx, and 4Kids were the main sites, and there might be one I'm forgetting.
I mean, I just hope that the Funky Cops website is alive and well somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
But I doubt it.
I almost definitely have it somewhere. I have to go through my archives.
All right, I'm going to thank you again. I know there's a false ending, but thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Steve, we got your question answered.
the biggest mystery of all.
F-Zero did not win. That's so funny. But that's such a good point, is like you really couldn't monitor or control how many entries people were making then.
No, I'm sure
it's
it
much
was
more regulated.
I'm sure. I think even I probably like went in there and voted for One Piece like every day or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. It's like, yeah, because why not? You
Stop
want
the
your show
vote.
to win. No, that was so much fun and so interesting. The whole Flash thing. Again, I'm not a computer person. I get what he's talking about from like a very rudimentary point of view, but what a crazy thing that also someone like Steve Jobs could make a statement like that, and
right?
It affects the whole industry.
I was immediately I was gonna bring that up. How just one thing, like I would say the biggest like invention in the last 20 years has just reshaped our society. Yeah, they just
Amazing.
we're not using Flash, and then just boom.
And his whole education, basically, of his work education, of learning this whole skill set, and you gotta just reconfigure what you're doing and pivot, as they say. But he seems to have figured it out. And what a cool career, like just being on the ground floor of so many different places. So very cool. Thank you to Jonathan Widrow. I said it wrong. Jonathan Widrow. Steve, any final thoughts? We did not tell our listeners about how they should subscribe, like, and review.
Well, thanks for listening to the show. If you weren't aware already, the podcast, once again, is 4Kids Flashback. Go to our website. That's 4kidsflashback.tv. Is it .tv?
No.
4kidsflashback. I'm sorry. The interview today is messing me up. It's the interview today that messed me up.
Because we did mention, so it's 4kidsflashback.com.
Yes.
More importantly, all
We're
these
not a
links
TV
that Steve
network.
We're not.
We would have
all
been sued,
things,
maybe. I don't know.
Oh yeah, probably. But all these links Steve is going to mention are in our show notes, so you don't have to write them down with a pen.
But you like hearing about them.
What else should they do? Yeah.
So you go to the website. It's not .tv. It's 4kidsflashback.com. Also with the number 4. Don't write out.
Don't spell it. Whatever you do.
But from there, listen to us on wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. And then also go over to our Patreon if you like the show so much. Why don't you kick us some $5 a month or something, and you'll get access to episodes a week early, ad-free, and other bonus content on there, access to our Discord.
Yeah. And
Discord's great because sometimes you could get even more questions answered almost immediately, either by other fans or by us.
And often I'll ask, if I know we have an interview coming up, I will, the questions that I asked Jonathan today I only gave our Discord folks the chance to contribute to that. Sometimes I'll do it on other platforms as well, but the Discord people seem to have the best questions, and because they're really into it. So please join that if you can. And even if you don't become a $5 member, you can just join to be on a mailing list for when new episodes come out and things like that. So that's helpful. Subscribe, like, and review. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can leave a review, press 5 stars. That helps people find the show and makes us feel good about ourselves. And God knows we could use an ego boost once in a while. So, please.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We will
catch you next time.
4Kids Flashback is a production of Maji Media, hosted by Tara Sands and Steve Yurko.
Producers are Zach Logan, Tara Sands, and Steve Yurko.
For more information, go to 4kidsflashback.com. That is the number 4. And if you worked at 4Kids and have a story you want to share, please email us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
You can find us on social media at 4Kids Flashback, and to listen early and ad-free, head to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. And for podcast merchandise, find links on our website and Linktree.
As they say on every podcast, if you liked this show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends, or 4. If you want to check out other Maji Media podcasts, go to maji.media. Thanks for listening. Hey Hey guys, Tara here. If you are enjoying the 4Kids Flashback podcast, here is another podcast you will probably like. It's called the One Piece Podcast. They have been covering One Piece since 2009, so there are about 1 million episodes for you to listen to. Highly recommend it. They do all kinds of behind-the-scenes stuff, break down the shows, interview actors. You're gonna dig it. Go to onepiecepodcast.com or look them up wherever you hear podcasts. And you might even hear a familiar voice that sounds a lot like Steve Yurko. Check it out now. Thanks.
Hi, it's Ashley and Jess with Wellness Reality Check. We are two health practitioners, moms, and best friends trying to navigate the world of holistic health in a balanced, productive way that brings health to our lives instead of dogmatic extremes. We'll be breaking down health trends, interviewing your favorite health influencers, and always keeping it real. We hope this podcast brings listeners back down to earth, providing a dose of reality in the often idealized world of health and wellness.
Wellness Reality Check. Follow the show now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at wellnessrealitycheck.com.